right. Oh, it's so nice to see these faces, these familiar faces again. Um, what we're going to do today is try to go through it quickly. We have these amazing presenters. They're the dream team. That's what I say. Toni Monett, give a wave. Cynde Glismann. She's the amazing PowerPoint maker. And myself, and we were the voter services co-directors. Candid helped us a ton. Mary Lee Moulton, the communications director, I think she worked about 20 hours a day on things communication related. So we are glad to have you here, and that's why we're the dream team.
And we all love each other.
Yeah. Yeah, really what a fun group.
It is. It's an awesome group.
Yeah, we're kind of got the passion. We were on fire.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what I'll be talking about, got 7 little areas to cover. The first one is our voter services goals. Then we'll talk about what we did in 2020. It's pretty amazing how we made this flip from doing face-to-face work to doing all by online. The GOTV partners, we'll mention them, the grants that we were fortunate enough to get to be able to accomplish our goals. The incredible league volunteers and so many willing people to help us get out the vote. We also have some unofficial results from Douglas County. And then we'd like to get your input on looking ahead. What's, what could we do differently? What could we do better for the next election phase? So, as you know, our voter service goals are the number, 3 big ones for Douglas County is registering voters, educating voters, and then making sure that our focus is on low propensity voters. So we do a good job at that. That's our focus. That's where we always say yes to anything related to where low propensity voters are involved. For instance, our phone calls for rejected ballots. We did some statewide. That was an interesting experience for us because these people aren't used to getting calls. So they really got concerned. And so we did them all counties except Douglas, and Civic Nebraska organized the Douglas County calls. And we did, I think later you'll see the numbers, how many people we did call for rejected ballots statewide. We did the OHA towers again, that ballot chasing, telling them first to make sure they're registered and then where to put the paperwork that was given to them, to fill it out and where to lead. Each tower had a leader that accepted a resident leader who accepted the applications. Then we did, Cynde will tell you too a lot about we texted league registered voters over the 4-year period that we've been keeping track. We texted all those people, texted high school students, and Cynde will talk more about that. But and then the Bryan High kids, we really had a good start with Bryan High. We worked with them in February and got them interested in a concept called Text 3 Friends to Vote. And you'll see it on the next page, which was just phenomenal. I guess there it is. I pledged to remind 3 friends to vote. Gosh, we had over 70 kids sign up to do that. And it gave those kids that aren't citizens something to do related to the election. So Cynde kind of was the organizer of all those kinds of texts. Youth outreach, let's see. So I'm there. Yeah, we definitely had to be flexible and change our high school plan. OPS, we had it all worked out where we would go into the libraries like you see here in every building, spend the day, and the teachers would bring the students in, and there would be kind of a relaxed atmosphere and opportunity to answer questions. So we did it at Bryan, and it was so successful. We had over 128 students register that morning. And as you see, we got them to find friends that they would get to vote. The government civics teachers are very committed to this, and we're fortunate in that the person that runs she's like the department chair for social studies. She is all about getting out the vote and using some of the state standards to make sure this is part of their annual class and their annual coursework. She also happens to be my backyard neighbor growing up, so it's kind of a cool connection. So as we said, we use the league database to stay in contact with students through texting. I think that's my part of the presentation. Oh, the other part I'll just mention though is that we did once we found out we wouldn't be able to go into the high schools, we gave OPS a really good PowerPoint and a really good graphic that the kids could just hold up their phones to the graphic and get connected to a registration site. So then when that fell apart, so then all of a sudden, all this was going to be done through this department chair. And so she got that information to the schools, and they weren't meeting at the beginning. So we didn't get any forms to these other students because they were all learning from home. And then in the process, we decided to contact all of the high schools in the suburban area and Catholic schools. And so a total of 25 high schools were contacted to provide our services, forms, whatever we wanted, or whatever they were requesting. Some of them didn't participate, but we had a good outcome because of something Cynde will tell you more about. Am I done, or do I have one more slide?
Let's talk about phone banking a little bit.
I can't hear you. Oh, the phone calls for rejected ballots.
Yeah,
talk about that.
A little bit. Yeah.
Yep. So I think I'm done.
Okay. Yeah.
Who's up next?
Sounds good. And we'll have more details about that when we talk about all our wonderful volunteers. So yeah, so I will jump into registrations. As Joanna mentioned, flexibility was the name of the game for this group. We found ourselves last spring not being able to register voters, in the middle of a pandemic. The deputy registrar training was indefinitely postponed, or if not canceled, for the rest of the year. We saw that there were demonstrations being held in the community, and these people wanted to register voters at the drop of a hat sometimes. So, and we of course wanted to serve our community, especially in some of these underserved areas. And so, we put our heads together, and this is how the idea of voter registration kits came up. So the idea was that we wanted to get these kits to people or organizations or groups or facilities or shelters or rallies, or be very flexible, but we wanted to get these kits out quickly to anywhere, and they would contain everything necessary to register people to vote, and in a safe manner, of course. So what you see here in this picture is a relatively small kit that went to Community Alliance in this case. It contains personal protective equipment, registration forms both in English and Spanish. It has pens, magnets, stickers, brochures for new voters they can keep. There are instructions on how to vote, how to return the voting registration forms, envelopes, their vote by mail applications if they want them. The goal was, of course, like we mentioned, be flexible. And you can see here too that we wanted to make these kits able to go to somebody who wanted to register 5 people, or in one instance, we provided a kit of 500 forms to, in this case, it was the Douglas County Jail. So that's how we best met the voter registration needs during the pandemic. There were a couple of ways that people found out about the registration kits. They called the league, and we were able to offer them the kit and training if they wanted it, via Zoom, of course. We also formed a committee that was absolutely fabulous. They contacted homeless shelters or halfway houses, and high schools, like Joanna mentioned, high schools other than OPS high schools that we'd been wanting to reach out to for a long time. they proactively searched some of these underserved areas in our community. And what you see here on the bottom of the slide then are some of the places who said, yes, we'd love to have a voter registration kit. So, and then the pictures on this slide are from the What Youth Can Do rally that was held at Central High in July. So the organizers of this rally contacted the league, and they knew they wanted to register voters at the rally, but they weren't sure how they were going to do that. So we gave them some training, and then we provided them with a kit, and then they took it from there. So I actually attended the rally, and just was so amazingly impressed with these. They were former Central High students, and actually not just Central High, but former OPS graduates who had just graduated in May and really wanted to become involved in their community. And it was just an amazing rally. I hope that you read about it and saw it on the news, and they're really amazing people. So anyway, the other way the Get Out the Vote team reached out to the community, of course, was by trying to become experts in Zoom. I don't know if that was accomplished, but like the rest of the world and Americans, we tried to learn Zoom as quickly as we could and start doing voter education presentations. So what you can see the different groups we presented to in the last couple of months on this slide. And what we noticed in gathering this information was just how demographically diverse this list is. And so we'd like to continue, in the next months and years to continue to reach out to all these ages and races and interest groups. So I think I will turn it over to our communications director guru, Mary Lee, and she'll tell us how she's been helping get out the vote in the last couple of months.
Great. Hi, everybody. I'm just going to take a few minutes to talk a little bit about kind of the strategies we used for communications and some of the tools and some of the things we created. So basically, we were in a position where we were really concerned that voter registration was going to be down. And so we tried to come up with some different ideas. And one of them we came up with was running these billboards. And so we were able to get 2 billboards on the left-hand side. You'll see that's the registertovote.org billboard. And we did that with Black Votes Matter. And then we had another, that was up on the north side of town. And then we did another billboard by ourselves on the south side of town. And we were able to get something like 1,800 hits to that site and 1,400 registrations. So we were really excited about how that went. Then once we got to the end of registration, we decided to change it up and decided to go with trying to get people informed about the vote and pushing Vote 411. And so we put up, I want to say, was it 3, Joanna, that we, and Cynde? 2? Okay, 2. I thought it was, okay, I think it was 2 more that we put up in different areas that were very high traffic. We kind of picked the highest traffic areas that they had available. And so hopefully we will be able at some point to get some figures from Vote 411 on IP addresses in Nebraska and see if they can give us some information, but we haven't gotten to that point yet. Then the other thing that was kind of unique that we did is, go back 1 second. So the other thing that we did is that we worked with the state table, and they were able to give us some funds and connect us with a marketing group that deals with nonprofits on social media. And so we were able to do these targeted Facebook ads. And you can see one here, and there'll be one on the other page that went to very specific communities, under voting communities, to really try to get out the vote in those particular communities and get them on Vote 411 for educational purposes. So that was pretty successful. We're going to have a debrief with them probably next week. And it was a great opportunity they gave us. Facebook ads are much more complicated than you think they would be. And because of the restrictions that they had trying to keep out the Russians. And, you know, at some point they shut down political campaigns. It was very difficult to navigate in these last couple weeks up to the election. So we were very thankful that they were able to give us professional help for that, which was great. Next slide, please. And so basically the strategy was to get as much information out as we could over across as many platforms. And we really concentrated on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, although we also had a presence on Nextdoor and on LinkedIn also, and obviously on YouTube. So I was able to create a lot of different ads addressing populations in both Spanish and in English. And, you know, bless their souls, we had Lilia, and we had oh gosh, well, sorry, totally
Laura.
blank. Laura, yes, sorry, Laura. And we had Laura helping us with the ads and in Spanish, and that was incredibly helpful. We were also able to, just to, as an aside, to put up on the state website an entire section called Votantes, which was all information in Spanish that Lilia helped us with. And it really gave us a whole new dimension to the website, and we're just super thankful for her help. Next slide. And then we also were able to do 14 candidate forums that we did on Zoom, which was super exciting, tons of work. Oh, sorry, my dog is barking at my window washers. Hold on a second. Come here, Betty. Come here. So we did that, and we did a lot of short, snippety kinds of less than 1 minute videos that we were able to put up on Instagram and Facebook, which is really helpful. So my question, or I guess my challenge to all of you is, you know, I need new ideas. So any ideas you have for social media, please send in. If you're somewhere doing something for the league, and Lord knows the vaccine is coming, we will be free, hopefully by April or May, to like re-enter the world. When you're at an event, always take pictures. If you can, take short videos of less than a minute and send them to me, because people love it when the league is out doing stuff. So the more things like that we can get, you know, the better off we'll be. Thanks again to Candid for all our help. And I have to say, working with the Get Out the Vote team, Toni, Cynde, and Joanna is a dream. So, you know, it was great. Thank you. That's it for me.
Okay, I guess I'm up next. Like several have mentioned previously, we do have Vote for 1-1, which I'm sure most of you are probably familiar with. So as a product of Vote for 1-1, with that candidate information, Douglas County has been producing a voter's guide for, I want to say, over 50 years with candidate information just for Douglas County. And so this year, as usual, they produced the guide, and then we were able to print, you see here, 6,000 copies of the Douglas County Voters Guide, which was printed in the Reader, El Perico, and Libraries and the Election Office. And so that was an opportunity for us to get that information to a wider audience, particularly areas in North and South Omaha that may not have been as familiar with the information, or that the candidate information exists. So obviously that helped us push forward the voter education piece of things, to make sure that because everyone was stuck at home and we're all in a pandemic, that people were able to either vote by mail or be informed prior to going to their polling place if that's how they chose to vote. So that was really exciting to be able to provide that information across Douglas County. And then new this year, the state league was able to produce Vote for 1-1 for all 93 counties in Nebraska, which allowed us to also print information, of course, for Sarpy County, which is included in that. So being able to provide that information in counties that previously didn't have it is obviously important, and we were very excited about being able to do that. So we did produce a Sarpy County specific guide as well. You see here, we printed 4,000 copies of that as well, available at libraries and the election office as well. And so I think one of the positives to expanding Vote for 1-1 across all of the counties was that individuals in those counties, whether they had low broadband access or were in rural counties and weren't familiar either with Vote for 1-1 or the League. I mean, that kind of got our brand out there, and it also hopefully will incite more motivation and more interest in the League and Vote for 1-1, and we'll have even more candidate participation. I think the last numbers that I looked at for the state, we had over 360 candidates that we had contacted and about 190 that actually participated. So that's a little over like 55%, I believe, which is actually pretty good according to the National League as far as participation for the first year. So yeah, hopefully that participation in counties like Sarpy County will only increase. And then, yeah, so that guide was available in PDF format via the state and also on the online votefor11.org portal. And we're also, like Mary Lee mentioned, waiting on some numbers to see what the traffic was as far as the Douglas County guide and the Nebraska guide, just to see how well we were able to reach people with that information. So next slide.
Hey, Toni, can I just interrupt and say that we did get some traffic numbers today on the Omaha website, and in October, we had 29,000 hits. So
Wow.
mostly to the voter's guide.
Yeah, so another thing that reminded me of is we did send out a press release to several media organizations about the voter's guide as well, which was printed in areas that previously didn't have the voter guide. I think Norfolk, Hastings, and there were a couple of more that I can't think of off the top of my head right now, that printed information in their newspapers about the guide as well. So that increased the traffic as well. And then we also created a higher education kind of toolkit. So like Joanna mentioned earlier in the presentation, we really wanted to focus on youth and young people and making sure that they were not only informed, but just civically engaged and were familiar with the process. So a lot of the research tells you that young people usually either don't vote or are not familiar with the vote by mail process in particular. And since that's the main way that we were encouraging everyone to vote during this pandemic, we thought it was important to create a graphic that was appealing and that had QR codes, for example, you see there for Vote for 1-1 and Rock the Vote, which is a youth-friendly website where you can get information not only on your state's voter registration process, but for those students that were out of state or attending school out of state and were still registered in their home state, Rock the Vote was an easy website for them to find out what information they needed to vote by mail or to register to vote there. So we did distribute that to local colleges and universities throughout the state, which seemed to be received well. I know that UNO definitely used the information in some of their organization fairs and other instances throughout the university where students were involved. So it was very successful in making the process simple and easy for young people to be involved and to make sure that their voice was heard. Next slide. And then obviously throughout the process of voter registration and voter education during the pandemic, we wouldn't have been able to accomplish much of what we were able to do without our partners. And so you see our partners listed here. So Civic Nebraska, ADL, Appleseed, the Nebraska Civic Engagement Table, which I'll talk about a little bit more on the next slide, was really beneficial in just providing resources and money, obviously, and then volunteers as well. So our Heartland Workers Center, Black Votes Matter, provided lots of volunteers to kind of uplift our outreach because their partnerships, they have partnerships with different communities. And so that was another way that we were able to get our message out to more people. And then the Reader and obviously the Douglas County Election Commission, big shout out to them. They ran a very seamless and transparent voter registration process and election process overall. And those are some of the things that we highlighted on social media as well. I don't know if Mary Lee mentioned, just letting people know that the process itself was safe. And because voting by mail was the method that everything was done in the most transparent manner as possible. So they were obviously a huge partner, and we're thankful for all of their help. And so speaking of grants, so the National League of Women Voters always provides grants for different types of voter registration efforts. One of those you see here is for naturalization. So when the pandemic hit, a lot of the naturalization ceremonies were canceled, or they started, I believe, doing some drive-by ceremonies as well. I believe, Joanna, where they were still somewhat having the ceremony just in a different format. But that grant is normally utilized for that, but we were able to use those monies to contribute to some of the other activities that we've talked about already. We also received a youth grant from the League of Women Voters of the US, which again went towards some technology and other pieces to get out the vote as it relates to young people and college students. And then our voter registration kits that Cynde talked about earlier were funded by the Nebraska Civic Engagement Table. So they've always been a great partner and someone who, takes our ideas and says, yeah, go ahead and do it. So we were able to get funds for the voter registration kits and also for the voter's guide to be able to distribute those and print all of those copies that I mentioned earlier. So obviously resources are important, and we're thankful for all of the support that we were able to get in that way to continue our efforts. And lastly, as far as uplifting our efforts, we had so many volunteers that put in so much time. So we're the co-directors of Get Out the Vote, but really the volunteers are like on the ground and doing the work. And so you see here kind of a breakdown of the volunteers and the amount of time that they put in. So our phone banking, our texting, our outreach, just in general to various different community organizations that Cynde mentioned with the voter kits. We did have several requests that came in pretty frequently to say that we were in a pandemic to get involved with getting out the vote and voter registration. So we did attend some events or provide materials for events for people to do messenger registration. So that's what's accounted for there with those volunteers. The voter's guide, so contacting candidates, following up with candidates about participating, and then just all the administrative work that goes into putting together a voter's guide, which is several hours of work. So all of that was appreciated as well. And then working with our partners, you see there, they provided volunteers and hours to push our efforts forward as well. So we're thankful for all of the volunteers that we have had over this election cycle. And we're hoping that everyone will stay involved. And my philosophy is that everyone has a place in the movement and in the process. So we're hoping that we can continue on with this motivation and effort. All right, and that's it for me.
Okay, so we did want to talk a little bit about the turnout. Now, the caveat here is that nothing is official here, so just remember that. And these are preliminary results, but we did get this information from the Douglas County Election Commission website. And just in general terms here, you can see that the red line here shows the turnout, the total number of voters, and you can see that has substantially increased every year. Well, almost every year, except for 2012. There's a slight dip, but substantially increased since 2004. Probably about, well, what is that? About 67,000. We have about 67,000 more voters now in Douglas County since then. So that's a lot of voters registered in the last 16 years. So also the percent turnout, we will have a record turnout this year, barely more, a little bit more than in 2008, which was by far a record year. Probably, this is unofficial, but somewhere around 73% in Douglas County. But really look at this. Look at this gray bar. The vote by mail percent has absolutely skyrocketed. So we don't know what's going to happen with the voting by mail in Nebraska. We do expect some challenges to that, but look at how much, just think of the education that needs to go into training or telling and educating all those people on how to vote by mail. So, I mean, that is a significant amount of work. So kudos, great job. The next slide, again, very unofficial. This is from the Nebraska Secretary of State office. It's not historical. There's not historical data, obviously, on this one. It's from the Nebraska Secretary of State office and just what the Secretary of State has mentioned in various articles published in the last week or so. So statewide, just under half of Nebraskans who voted received their ballots by mail. Approximately 957 Nebraskans voted, 950,000 Nebraskans voted total. In 2016, I think it was about 860,000 Nebraskans voted. So that's about a 96,000 total number of votes increase. And then this last rectangle over here, the 310,000 eligible voters who did not vote. Now that's again from the website, but included in that bar are people, that's not absolutely clean data. That could be people who have moved or people who are deceased. So, we definitely want to work, obviously, to register more voters, but that's not a true picture of eligible voters, probably. Okay. So, looking ahead, and this is, like we said before, we would like your input on this. The greater team is going to meet and absolutely go over the things that worked, the things that didn't work in the last year. We definitely want to continue our focus on youth and the broad section of the community, but also reach, the low propensity voters, focus on east of 72nd Street. What we'd really like to do is find more and better ways to engage League of Women Voters members and make it easy to volunteer. We don't have much time to rest. We have spring elections, big elections, mayor, and all kinds of elections. And then, like I just mentioned, we do anticipate challenges to the vote by mail process in the whole state. So at this time, I would like to open it up to everyone and get your feedback on what you think worked this year, what questions we'd like to answer, any questions you might have about our strategies or what we saw, and tell us what you liked, what's easy for you, ways you would like to get involved, or just open it up. We'd love your feedback.
Lilia had a question that she put in the chat room, and it was regarding how, why do candidates not respond to the voter's guide? And so I just thought I'd say a little bit about that. Can you hear me okay?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So what we found in Douglas County, 80% within the metro area, 80% of candidates responded. But where they didn't respond, that brought our average down, was the suburban areas, like Ralston, Millard, like school board candidates. Bennington were terrible. And some people say Bennington and Elkhorn say they don't really want to be part of Omaha. I mean, there's that sort of thinking that they don't like to be annexed into the city, but they are. So I would love some ideas about how to get out to those people in Douglas County that don't answer. And one Bennington council candidate, we did make calls to say, you know, you haven't answered yet. There's still time. This is what you do. One candidate said, I don't want to. I thought that was kind of funny. But I didn't ask her how come, and I should have. So any thoughts about that? Any suggestions about how do we get those suburban people? Lilia?
I'm just wondering if the lack of participation, especially in the small towns, part of the big town, is how they perceive the League of Women Voters. Do they think this is a political agency that will promote or block them? You know, what is the party perception? This is a Democratic organization. This is a Republican. You know, I have some friends that now they realize that this is not just about women, that this is about voters. They say, oh, I thought that it was, you know, just women's issues. Well, and we have an argument about what women issue is not all people, everybody's issue. But anyway, it's just those, maybe they don't know about the league, they are not familiar with it, or they have their own perception. Just wondering if that will be one of the reasons, especially for those small towns like Raston, for instance, that they might feel, well, whatever this organization does really doesn't apply to us. And it's just because they don't know. I wonder if that will be the case, if there is any data about it, and also maybe develop some promotional campaign and education about the league itself. Not just reaching out to voters, not just giving education to others, but to promote the league, to educate about the league, and of course, hopefully increase the number of members of the league, as well as the participation from the members of the league in different activities. I will bet you that there is at least 1 or 2 league members in each little corner of Douglas County and even beyond. If we can engage them to be the voice of the league, I mean, to me, this is not a club that I belong to and go to a meeting once in a while. This is a participation. This is an activity, activism organization. You're here, you got to do something. But of course, I don't expect everybody to see the league those terms, but it's just a few things that I'm just wondering about. The image of the league, how much information is out there about how the league can help, what we do, and the league member themselves. Look how many people are in this meeting. 11 people. What is the total list of members in Omaha?
In the organization.
Yeah, rhetorical question. You probably know the numbers. So anyway, I think I don't know if we have time to work on that from now until spring, but it's probably something to consider.
Do you think it would help if we contacted those candidates who didn't respond even after phone calls? You know, contacted them with maybe 3 questions to find out maybe what they were looking
Well, I don't
for.
know. If they didn't respond the first time, why will they do?
Well, I have a question, and this is something that you don't even have to ask of them, but do we ever then go back? You just mentioned, Marilee, about the information about how many contacts there were and how many visits there were. Do we ever go back to the people who answered and didn't answer? But do we ever go back to all the people listed in the voters guide and say, okay, thanks. You know, do we go back to them and tell them how many? Yeah, we should. We should go back and say, hey, look at how many people came to this site to look for the answers.
Right. And we also may want to like get some statistics from the reader on how many of those got picked up, how many sites they have. And then, you know, it was in the Omaha World Herald. I mean, I think what we want to do also
we
is
don't
go to the parties. we need to make sure that the parties understand,
Yes,
you
yes,
know, how much
I would send a
coverage.
letter to the parties. I would just say,
Yeah.
you know, we're collecting the statistics now. We need to share them. Say, hey, look, we printed 6,000 of these. They went here and here and here and here and here. You
Right.
know, the hits were this many. So obviously people are dying for information.
Right.
Not dying, are thirsty for information.
I mean, to be
Better word.
perfectly honest,
Yeah,
in
bad.
general, we tend not to have as much response from Republicans as we do from Democrats.
Exactly.
And I
I
would
know.
point out to them, I think that Don Bacon's answers got read by a lot of people and may have contributed to him winning. So, I
Wow.
mean, you know,
Yeah, the
he's
fact that
not
he even
afraid of
answered.
answering our
too.
questions.
Yeah,
Mhm.
I would strongly suggest, you know, sending it's one page that, you know, we made that effort to contact them in the first place. It's so easy then to say, I don't know, I guess you thank the people who did
Mhm.
answer. And then I don't know what you say to those who didn't, but just say, maybe you want to, I don't know, you don't want to shame them at all, but
Mhm.
or somehow, well, you do, but you don't.
I think it would
Yeah,
be great, but I would want to wait till we got the numbers from Vote
yes,
411 too.
yes.
So
Yeah,
that we
there's
have
no
everything.
hurry. There's
Yeah.
no hurry. You'd want as much data as possible,
Mhm.
I think.
Yeah.
But
That's a
I
great
think
idea.
it's, yeah, yeah.
I think just working on the other side as well with the whole state, I think even giving that information to like our elected officials as far as election commissioners and county clerks and things of that nature, because they're
Yes,
providing us the candidate
yes,
information.
yes.
And it's really about buy-in, because a lot of the candidates that we reached out to before we started doing postcards that we called were just like, I don't know anything about the league, to Lilia's point.
Yes.
Our branding, you know, other places, just it's not as widespread as it could be.
Right.
And I
And
think if you have buy-in from the constituents, they can, you know, kind of push their candidates in their area to be like, why didn't you respond? Or, you know, you're my representative and I'd like to know what you have to say. So I think getting that buy-in from either league members that are members at large, or maybe even starting up local leagues, because I know that there were local leagues in other parts of the state probably years ago, that just aren't active or went inactive for whatever reason. So I think that's a part of it too.
yeah, yeah.
Doris Heaston made a comment in the chat room that she tells people that she never votes for candidates who don't complete the guide. You know, that's
Yeah. Yeah.
It shows disinterest in your community. I think it majorly takes away from all campaigns. Yes, go
Right.
ahead, Erlene.
I am new to League of Women Voters, but I have used the guide when I've lived in other states a lot. And I posted this guide in we have a subdivision, and I'm out in Millard, who isn't replying a lot. And a lot of people had never heard of this guide. When I posted it as a reference, this is not political. This is a reference of all candidates. If you have time or questions, read. And it was concerning because it's a large organization in Omaha that we still have no knowledge of it in many places. So I am very anxious. Now that I'm retired, I'm looking forward to something to put some energy in. And so
Yay.
you will be one of those.
Yay. Yay.
We're
Yay.
so happy to have you. Thank you for joining.
Yes. 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 Yes.
And I will.
And I have lived across the state in many small towns, so I have lots of connections of women and men voters out there that could be helpful in this also.
Oh, fantastic.
we'll
I
be in
will-
touch, Arlene.
Oh, yes. And I will say from an administrative view, with what we're talking about in regards to the imagery of LWVGO as a whole, we are working on some updates in terms of how are we rebranding our website and things like that. And I do have some ideas in terms of like, should we make some kind of a commercial that talks about what we do in like a minute, you know, and says we're nonpartisan and this is what we do and this is who we've reached. So I do have a lot of re-imaging and rebranding things that Mary Lee and I have been talking about when it comes to communications, to make sure that next election, I mean, we've reached so many people this election. I don't think it's going to be as hard to, you know, make this even bigger next season. But to make sure that we have that language out there, that's very clear of who we are, because we've gotten by our awesome members who always are telling people about the work we're doing. An example is what Erlene just told us about. But how are we making sure that our community outside of our membership knows what we're doing? And I think that's a great question that Lilia posed.
But can we go back to Lilia's other point though, about how do we engage some of these other members?
Sure.
Or more members?
Sure.
I might have interrupted you, Lilia. What were you gonna?
No, I was going to add what Candice says. I'm wondering, just crossed my mind, some sort of a develop chapters or clubs or something in high school and colleges. You know, there are all of these youth organizations, and I'm not very familiar with many of them. Clubs that students in high schools and colleges formed, and there are politicals, and they are arts, and they are just affiliation just for identity purpose, all of those kind of groups. If we could develop something like that.
Right. Yeah, that's something we're also
Youth Legal Women Voters, Women Voters Association or club or something.
Exactly.
And of course, we have to have some sort of a support master program from the main house for us with activities. Or I don't know.
We're actually starting
to me some sort of a chapter or something.
Yeah. So
from when they are starting in high school or maybe whatever grade, to start getting people involved. So when they get to the voting age, they will be multipliers of the message.
Yes, this is actually something
like that.
Toni and I have been talking about this, as well as Bridget. We're really wanting to start a youth coalition in the next year that is specific for our students and gives them a leadership role within the organization as well, in how they're doing youth activism and, you know, engagement within our city. So that's definitely something we're working on, and I hope to have, you know, a better plan for as the year comes through. But you'll definitely see more youth engagement as we come through. That's a big goal for Toni and I and the rest of the GOTV team as well.
Yeah, I envision as like an ambassadors kind of program. So like you're taking our message and the things that connect with you personally and putting it out there on your campus, in your school, and that's like, because there's going to be more buy-in if like you're a representative of our organization, as opposed to us going to your campus or to your school and saying, hey, register to vote. Not to say that that message doesn't matter, but I think if you can get the buy-in from your peers, that it's important. And especially with everything that's been going on over the last few months, I think that just that alone and the unrest that and the passion that has come from that, I think will help us move that forward. So I'm excited about it.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Having been a teacher for 39 years, clubs in most high schools have to come from the students themselves initiating it. You cannot come from outside and encourage that. So what you're saying about your active members, they would have to talk to their athletic director, administrator, whoever's in charge, and it would have to come from the students outward. And yes, you could be a definite resource for them, absolutely, but you can't go in and initiate.
Absolutely. And with the,
and you may know that, so
with the ideas that we're planning on, we're definitely planning on using the students that we have within the organization to move whatever project we are planning on doing forward. So we're definitely going to make use of those students that are at Creighton, are at UNO, et cetera, to see how we can immerse or, you know, promote civic engagement through LWVGO on their campus.
One of the things you may want to add to that are the students who have been in the running and winning program.
True. Very true.
They would be a really good, you know, group. And I don't know, I thought we gave them automatic membership this past year. Am I right or wrong about that? I'm not sure.
Oh, that.
But that's something to definitely look into.
Go ahead, Toni.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, I don't remember that specifically, but I could be wrong. But yeah, there are some super amazing students that participate in that. So I think that that's
Mhm.
definitely a jumping off point because a lot of them, because I participated in it when we had it in person, whenever that was. Um,
Mhm.
and they were very excited about just being involved in general. And so I think they definitely could be, catalysts for starting that up. So
And I don't remember entering anything in the last months with that group. However, I can look into it and I'll get back to you to make sure we figure out how that process goes with membership. I do also want to say we're going to be having a bit of a similar dine and discuss at the end of this month on November 30th. However, the difference with that is that we're going to be joined by Avenue Scholars. Avenue Scholars is like one of those preparation for college kind of programs that works with high schoolers. Do they also work with college students, Toni? Do you remember if Jamar mentioned?
They do.
I would say it's high
Okay, they
school.
do.
Yeah.
Joanna says.
I just provide
So,
support to them while they're in college.
right. I think they deal with both groups. Um, more high school than not, I would say. But they'll be joining us, and hopefully some students will come in as well to talk about the election season and what it means to be politically engaged and things like that. But I just wanted to say that distinction there is that we will be joined by some possible interested students who want to learn more about the political system and what our organization does to help move along, the things that go on in our city. So just wanted to tell you if you were unsure about that event coming on later on this month.
I had a couple comments. One is Alaska has a program like that with high school and college students, and they have a full-time person. And I would encourage whoever is motivated to do this to write a grant and actually have staff. It's asking a lot to make that happen. We tried
Oh,
on
I'm
a
sorry,
small
what were you talking about? Oh, the youth coalition things?
yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
okay, yeah.
You
Yeah.
really need a staff person to carry it on from year to year. Mary
Yeah.
Lee and I kind of work with some Central High students, and we thought they would help us out with, I can't remember which event it was, but that it didn't work out. So it takes consistency and continual contact, and as you said, Earlene, somebody that thinks it's a good idea and makes it happen within their building.
Well, listen, guys, you have me on your corner to make it happen. As the months go on, Toni and I and the GOTV team, I think it's definitely something that's at the top of our list to, make sure we at least form some kind of unity for the students within our organization. That's the biggest goal. And then outside of that, to encourage them to also bring in their friends who may want to volunteer or learn more about what's going on in their community and just haven't. So for sure, making use of the students we have to use their passion because they've already, showed us that they're interested in our organization. So let's use that, push and make it an easy way. Definitely don't want to task it too much where, it becomes too crazy, but we'll let you guys know as updates for that come along.
The other thing I want to mention is the voter's guide. I keep track of all the voter's guides that are available in Douglas County, and I've counted about 7 that happen every election. The other guides all kind of recommends, there's issues they care about, and you get a yes or a no if you stand for those positions, like the Catholic newspaper. And gosh, there's numerous ones. I don't have it in front of me. But what I do find with those is that those Republican candidates that didn't answer the voter's guide don't answer those either. So I think statistics like are being suggested to send out to the Republican Party and to all of the candidates, showing, this really can,
Neutral.
yeah, can
Yeah.
help. But I've been told by when I make the calls, oh, there's just too many voters guides. I can't answer them all.
In terms of Lilia's question about adding the numbers maybe into our, or distributing them, I'm thinking maybe we should do a part in the next bulletin, but of course, Toni is planning on doing some things with state. Are you planning on sending that as an email, Toni?
Yeah, I was planning on maybe doing like a MailChimp with just like kind of a recap with data and, like what our outreach was and the different and a recap of the different projects and things that we did. Because yeah, I think that's important for people that aren't attending this and maybe won't necessarily go to the website and look at our information. I think it's important to kind of put it in their face and give them the ability to share it and forward it on to other people that might be interested in it. And I think that's all part of engaging a wider range of membership as well. So yeah, I plan on doing
Douglas County
Toni-
has an annual
Toni-
report that we will again submit to everybody. And I think that message of this is what you league members helped make happen, is a really good reinforcing message, Lilia.
Absolutely.
And that could be an opportunity to gather some data. And I don't know if from the technical point of view, you can include some like a comment, your opinion. We are interested in your opinion and your comment, something like that effect. So those who read that information might have something to say, from I didn't know that to I love it, and everything in between. I don't know if from the technical point of view that is possible. And and that will engage people right from there, will engage people. Some people might say, oh, how come I didn't know that? I would have loved to participate.
Definitely.
We will know that if that
I
data,
can,
but I don't know if that's possible. You guys know about that?
It's definitely possible. And what I'm thinking just off of what you're saying is possibly doing a post-election season survey and adding it into our bulletin if we do like a GOTV kind of part. And outside of that, posting it on our website as well. And community partners can then respond as well, just so that we know what the community feels about, what we've been doing. I don't know what the GOTV team thinks about that. But it is a possibility to do that. It's very possible.
Sounds great.
Okay, cool. I can definitely get started on that.
So Keith, did you have anything you wanted to bring up?
No, not really. I really got on because I wanted to find out everything that everybody did this time, and it's impressive.
Thanks.
Thank you, Keith. All right. Do we have any other questions for our GOTV team? Or anything?
Well, Erlene talks about the healing that needs to happen after this election. And she mentioned it's a perfect time to reinforce nonpartisan focus. And so our data summary, you want to think of it in terms of that is, are we giving information? Are we making it clear we're nonpartisan, that we don't take sides?
And that definitely will go along with our rebranding kind of efforts as we get into January. That's kind of where I see a bigger pull or push of that communication will be happening in our organization. But yes.
Just to let you guys know, I was actually on a call yesterday, a webinar that talked about the whole concept of bringing the country together. And I think that really is a good opportunity for us, because I think that we're in a unique position to kind of occupy that space. And as far as social media goes, that'll be one of the topics that you'll be seeing us, trying to get information out on, and, and doing some I think probably get out the vote, get out the Go Vote Omaha pieces on and things like that.